Hello, thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Wise Content Creates Wealth. You've heard that content is king. Well, wise content rules the world. Wise content requires analysis and use of data to inform decisions about how to create and how to promote it. Using knowledge and tools such as behavioral science, artificial intelligence, semantic research, and influencer co-creation that are necessary to make meaningful impact on the content produced and its resulting effectiveness. This podcast investigates the art, science, tech, and people that make wise content successful. If you're not doing wise content in this world, your company is getting behind. I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, and I'm a marketing technology expert who has built multi-million-dollar companies, created award-winning technology, and successfully implemented viral content campaigns. And today we're going to talk about long-form content with AI. So today my guest is Ankur Pandey. Ankur is the founder of LongShot AI, which he started in 2021. LongShot is an end-to-end platform to research, generate, and optimize long-form content. He has previously founded Unfound, a startup to fight misinformation for both consumers and companies, where he worked with the likes of the BBC, Google News, and etc. He has a decade-long experience in data science, where he built data teams at 3 different companies. Hello, Ankur. How are you doing?
I'm awesome, Joseph.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me. It's so glad to be here.
Cool. And where are you based?
I'm in Bombay, Mumbai, India.
Yeah. And have you always been there?
No, not really. I mean, like pretty much everywhere, part of it in the United States as well, and in the Europe. Yeah.
Cool. And how did you get into machine learning and data science?
Well, I was a technical guy. Like I did my engineering. I did a master's, and then I was a PhD student. And then kind of, it was the beginning of the sort of machine learning getting hot. So I ventured into data science, machine learning, and have worked in industrial machine learning for about a decade.
Cool. And you work for some decent companies and so on. And then you had your first startup, which your LinkedIn profile said it's failed fast, and that was called SmartLoad. What did you do, and what did you learn?
Yeah, well, I mean, I sort of I was at that time more of an idea guy, and we found a cool idea about using machine learning to fix logistic industry, and we kind of found a client like in a day, and another day another client, and so on. But what I noticed was that we got these sort of orders, but I noticed that I was solving the problem, but I did not really understand it well, and also my heart was not there. I was kind of fascinated with how to do it, but like maybe not so attuned with the folks I was serving, right? So I kind of decided to wrap it before it becomes too late. But yeah, it was like startups go through that journey, and entrepreneurs also go through that journey, wherein we understand a few things and then we realize what is our true calling, right? So
so it sounds like it's an important lesson, I think, for anybody doing startups, is that the idea can be cool and clever, but if your heart is not in helping the actual clients and the industry that you're helping, it's probably not a good idea to decide to base your life upon it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I've been through that before. It's it's like you sort of you get into just, it becomes like a chore to actually do the business anymore, because you're just not enjoying it. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it just because it's a clever idea, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Makes sense.
I mean, it's getting people to pay for creating a piece of software is one thing, right? That's a challenge that you thought this would be great, but then making a business and marrying that business and deciding to do that for a long term, no. I think that was a wise choice on you. And you learned it on your first startup. Well, that's pretty amazing.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I'd like to add that my co-founder at that time, like even though startup failed, but we started dating, and she's now my wife. So something we got, right?
So it was a startup necessary to meet your life partner. It wasn't the startup to be your life. So then you started writing. You were a columnist for a bit. How did that come about?
Yeah, so it was kind of in parallel with the other things, and I was basically kind of trying to write for a startup magazine in India, and this was more of a like hobby thing, right? Like I used to write once in a while, and I was just trying to share my learning. So it was a gig which kind of taught me how to write for an audience, and maybe in some sense my first foray into what does writing for an audience really mean.
Mm-hmm. But you did that what, for about a year or so, and then you
On and off, yes, on and off, yeah.
and then you went back into building things
Yeah.
and we're doing a data and the data science stuff, right?
Right. So data science, machine learning, and like everything in between, something like that. So yeah, you're right. Like this gig was more of a parallel with other things, and as I said, like it kind of gave me a taste of how to write the content for an audience, not just for yourself.
Right.
So
That's good. Now, especially years later, you're doing a content thing. So you have
yeah,
some understanding the life of a content writer, which is great.
right.
Which I think a lot of these, there's been a lot of good CEOs on here talking about AI and content, but some of them haven't been, haven't lived the life or walked the walk. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you founded your first successful startup and had an exit, right? Unfound.news.
Yeah.
And what did that do?
So Unfound actually started with a premise that, like it was trying to solve misinformation and media bias problem. I mean, which is again so hot thanks to Mr. Musk. But what we were trying to do was not really trying to have our own version of truth, but rather trying to aggregate all different perspective into one. So basically, if you search for a news topic, you are presented with all sides of things, like from, let's say, US context, maybe news from Fox, Breitbart, as well as New York Times. Like, so you can decide, right? Like what version kind of resonates with you. So basically, this was we were trying to approach it from a technical point of view, that rather than an editorial point of view, there are a lot of news out there, and what we were trying to do was in some sense, bring in this news using technology into one place. So it was successful. It was liked by a lot of folks. But then what we realized was that it was probably not a great business idea per se. Like we had a lot of users, but then like we wanted to monetize, and we did not want to place ads because this would kind of dilute the vision. So the way we earned revenue was to kind of do the same thing for businesses. Like part of it, like businesses also suffer with fake news, and like they have biased news. They want to know about it before it becomes too late, right? So this was the whole idea of Unfound News and Unfound AI.
So and you monetized it by getting businesses to subscribe to it.
So what we did was that the businesses would pay us to kind of detect if there are some fake news about them and can alert them before it becomes too late.
So you became sort of a reputation, reputation company, and PR, in a way, a PR company, right?
So it was like a kind of one front was for consumers, another was for these businesses.
But you didn't make any money from consumers, right?
Yeah, businesses were the one kind of we got money.
And did you sell that? Did you exit that?
No, so I exited not by selling it, but kind of we kind of pivoted when we realized that a few of these businesses were paying us, but post COVID we realized that the kind of traction, because our clients had more urgent profit related issue rather than trying to do reputation management. So although it was a good profitable business, but we decided to kind of pivot from there. Also because while doing all these things, so we are technologists at heart, right? Like I'm talking about me and my whole team. So we noticed that there were some like while doing all these, we realized that some really interesting technologies in AI and machine learning and NLP could actually help solve creating content problem. And this was something we were doing on the side. To some extent, we were doing also for a client. And when we decided to kind of shift the business and also gave it a new name, because this was completely a new direction for us. So yeah, in short, we did not exit out like traditionally, but we kind of, from a profitable business, we decided to move to somewhat more lucrative opportunity.
And what did you do with the technology that did that?
So, like, as I said, like technology is something which in some sense can be repurposed. So that's why we were like, for example, today in LongShot, we use the similar technologies we developed in Unfound, which is to kind of make sure that the content is factually correct, and it does not have like wrong claims, like which is one of the problem with content generators. So we in some sense also repurpose that technology.
Cool. And now you co-founded, so it looks like you've co-founded all your companies, or at least, well, the first one you didn't co-found with her, but you met her there. Your wife, Anushri Bishnoi.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's working with your wife and running a company? Yeah.
I mean, it's so it's it has its own challenges, because sometimes you, like when you start out, you have to kind of pay the bills, and you have to also sort of manage like time, like household chores and things like that, right? So it has its challenges, but it also is like, also about that, you do not have to have work-life balance, so to speak, right? Like, your work and your life is like the same. So
well, I've founded two companies with my wife, right?
Oh, awesome.
So I've been in that place before.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found is that you have to set certain boundaries. Like,
Right.
if you're in the privacy of your bedroom, you don't talk about business.
So I'm kind of learning that. I know,
yeah, it's like boundaries, or otherwise it just, everything becomes just about the business, and then your relationship suffers. It definitely requires some management, but at the same time, it's very rewarding, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's really fulfilling. Yeah.
Of course, now we have 2-year-old twins, and this is my second rodeo. I have a 30-year-old son, but now we have 3-year-olds. I have 3-year-old twins, and so that is another enterprise entirely upon itself. But the boundaries issue is still the same thing. There's certain times you talk about childcare, and sometimes you talk about other things.
Yeah,
cool.
Completely.
Well, we're going to take a break and come back, and we're going to talk about LongShot. All right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hello there. This is Joseph Franklin McElroy back with the Wise Content Creates Wealth podcast with my guest, Ankur Pandey. So Ankur, you you changed unfound.news into LongShot AI. So what and you mentioned, you wanted to focus in on long form content. What does LongShot mean? Why is it named that?
Right. So it's a funny story. I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about like maybe less heard of comic characters. So it's a bit departure from what you might think. So we came across a Marvel character called LongShot. This is a superhero, and the power of the superhero is that the superhero can change probabilities. Like, okay, it's very geeky, right? Like, never heard. So, and it also kind of resonated somehow with what we were trying to do. We were trying to kind of focus on more long form content issues, right? We noticed that when you try to write long content, there are a lot of challenges even with the modern AI, right? So in some sense, this came together, and LongShot.
LongShot. All right, cool. Well, there's a marketplace, and I'm sure you know this. It's called G2. It's the largest and most trusted software marketplace.
Yeah,
I think over 60 million people, and you were awarded the high performer AI writing assistant for the spring of 2022. Congratulations! Yeah. So,
thanks.
So what is it that LongShot AI does that wins that award?
Right. So I'll just give you a brief context. I think about 1.5 years back, thanks to a lot of innovation by Google and others, a lot of new technologies started coming, which started to help content creation process a lot better than it used to be. Now we were in this business, like in terms of technology, since a while, and we also understood this, as a part of our other exercises. And we noticed that there were other players also coming who were trying to leverage it and trying to do it, help content creators. But we saw that there is this space vacant, which is like, trying to fix long form creation really well. Because when you try to create, let's say, a few hundred words and all, right, so AI has this habit of kind of going drunken, right, going in all sorts of direction, trying to hallucinate, right, try to kind of conjure up things, right? So this is what we want to attack. And why, we noticed that there are a lot of takers when it comes to content marketing, SEO community, because they have to write long form content like day in and day out, right? And for example, for the brands, they help for other pieces, information pieces, top of the funnel content, and so on. So we essentially, the idea here is that there is this platform where we try to you can put in your topic, and we will give you some keyword suggestions, research suggestion. Then you can actually create the whole content, and we'll also optimize in the sense that this content is to be written for someone, right? So we will give you really cool SEO scores, like which is not the kind of standard SEO scores you're used to. It is very, very very, very sort of attuned to the writing process. So while writing, will tell you, is this writing SEO friendly already or not? You don't have to stuff keywords necessarily from anywhere else. So I would, if I were to sort of succinctly put it, LongShot is a AI platform to research, generate, and optimize long form content.
So what would you define as long form content?
Yeah, so long form is anything which, so typically you can associate long form with long blogs, really, like anything which is 200-300 more, 400-500 words, 1,000. We have folks writing blog of 7,000-8,000 words also, right? So pretty much that. But then it can also be like position papers, reports. It can also be newsletters. So these are some of the popular use cases we have seen. Product reviews, really long product reviews, right? In-depth product reviews. So these are example long form content, I'd say.
So you basically, what do? You use the search engines to find successful content, right? And then train your machine learning to understand what the content is being written about a particular subject or based upon keywords.
Yeah.
And then it will produce. Do you give it some sort of outline, or how does it go about?
Right, sure. So I'll kind of briefly explain it. And by the way, like, to whoever is listening, you can definitely check it out. It's free to check out. But essentially, the idea is you kind of started exactly at this place what we do. So you put in any topic. Let's say you want to write on Tesla electric vehicles, right? You kind of put it in, and we'll give you a lot of suggestions from top sources, what has been kind of popular before. That this is what you want to write on. You want to write on like something specific to Tesla EV. Let's say Tesla EV solar like solar batteries or whatever, right? Like so you can basically, there is a guided approach wherein you can create a content brief using those suggestions we give you. So the content brief is kind of, you have to finally kind of pick up some important pieces. We even give you things like what are the questions you should answer. So this is, how do we know this? Like popular questions people are asking on the search engines, as well as various forums like Reddit, Quora, etc. Right? There's a very interesting feature called fact sheet, wherein we also tell you that what are the important facts about the topic you want to write. Let's say time taken for a Tesla car to run on a given battery, right? Things like that, right? So these are important facts which any content writer would want to include. So these are all raw material to basically create a content brief. Now, as soon as you create a content brief, we kind of sort of kickstart our AI engine. So it sees the brief and it says, like, let me first suggest you a really cool headline. It'll keep on giving you suggestions and it gives you infinite suggestions. And all these suggestions are unique. You'll never find except from very like kind of canonical cases, you'll not find duplicate content anywhere. So first it'll give you a headline suggestion. Once you freeze that, it will actually give you outline suggestions. Again, you can generate any number of time you want. This is entirely based on the content brief you have already selected. And these outlines keep on changing, like it can be long, short. And we'll also suggest that how many outline should you make depending on what we know about this particular topic. And finally, the writing kicks in. So by the way, there is a caveat. Even if we do not write for you, in the sense that we will not produce the long content at one click. So, people sometimes kind of sort of assume that, maybe we are there is one click content. No, we don't do that, and we don't want to do that. And I'll come to the reason in a minute. So basically the idea is that as soon as you have created an outline, the structure, so to speak, of your content, it's like, you will kind of give it some nudges that, you will probably tell AI something like this. I want my first introduction to include things like these, and it'll kind of write an introduction for you. And then you kind of tweak it a bit, and then you'll give another paragraph. So, there is a guided process. So what we have noticed is that in order to create, let's say, about a couple of thousand words of article, you'll need somewhere between 15 to 25 minutes, right? If it's a sort of top of the funnel, middle of the funnel content. If it is slightly more in depth, maybe 10 minutes more, right? So now this is a guided process, and as I was mentioning that we do not do one-click generation because we really want it to be meaningful, right? We do not want to give the control to the AI. The human writers, the content writers, still in command. They still are guiding
Mm-hmm.
It's like AI is giving them like tons of suggestions at every button click, but they have to choose it and they have to tweak it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I kind of gave a big picture of what we actually do.
So, there's also important aspect of writing. It's like brands especially ask us all the time about a brand voice and a style. Is your software able to write in different voices and with a different style?
Yeah, exactly. So this is again like thanks for this, because this is a question we keep on getting like every other day. So we have like how should I put it? There is like a simple and a slightly more complex solution. So we have a way wherein you can change the tone, like maybe you want to make it more aggressive, or you want to write like Elon Musk would write, right? Things like that, right? So you can kind of direct AI to write formal, casual, of a certain type, of a certain known brand, things like that. But and this is something some brands have done with us. Let's say you are a brand and you are like super anxious about like you should preserve your brand voice to the last bit. So what we have done is that you can give us your data, like past data, open data. We do not want any kind of secret data. Like let's say you have published a typical big brand would have published hundreds of articles already, right? So you can give us the links of those. We take that and then train AI exclusively for these brands. So that the AI for these brands would actually know what kind of word choices the brand has used in the past. what kind of patterns, what kind of sort of tone, right? What kind of approach they have taken, and even what kind of data they have, what kind of data or the context they have written about. So this is like the complete foolproof way of preserving brand voice. So yeah, these are the kind of ways we do.
And when you're writing content, right? Especially if you're writing content for websites and it's got a promotional aspect or a sales aspect,
right.
There's a lot of different kinds of approaches like behavioral science or ways to get people to convert, based upon how you write and lead up to certain conclusions and things like that. Is that something that also could be trained into the AI?
It can be our focus. So like when we started this product, we know that generating content can be generic. Like for example, as you said, creating content for the website and all, and creating even marketing copies. But and tool can do all of those things. But our focus remains on this very problem, like long form content. And the reason is that I think this is still unsolved to a large degree. So like as a young startup, relatively young startup, what we plan to, let's say in for the next 6 months to the year, focus exclusively on this problem and like maybe peripheral problems. Because so I think the answer to this is that it can be done, but our current focus is on more towards the long form and it's the problem associated with that.
Mm-hmm. Is it all original content, or do you have any problems with duplicate?
Yeah. So this is again, like as you can imagine, any content writer worth their salt would definitely worry about originality, right? Mm-hmm. And we have a way to kind of check for yourself, like we give you a plagiarism score, right? And we will kind of, we have 10,000 users, more than 10,000 users, and the plagiarism score is always like near zero, right? And if it is, for example, some part seems to be plagiarism, some very kind of standardized like part can be maybe seem to be lifted, like maybe some facts, then you can also change it, right? So I think this is something we take very seriously, and we provide our writers a tool to verify that.
All right, cool. Well, when we come back, we'll talk more about your product and the things that it can do and some of the features. All right?
Sure.
Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauver, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc, now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, this is Joseph Franklin McElroy, back with the Wise Content Creates Wealth podcast, and my guest, Ankur Pandey. So Ankur, I had a previous guest that had a machine learning doing some content too, different focus, but he mentioned that a lot of times these machine learning content producers, if you train them not enough data or with too much data, that they start producing duplicate content. Is that true?
That's true, absolutely. And I would say that, so I would say not enough data is definitely more of a problem than too much data. For example, the kind of AI so we have our own AI systems, but we also kind of use the ones developed by Google and other players. So for example, Google's AI, which is called GPT-3, now very famous, we kind of use that in parts. So that is like trained on probably like, multi-billions of, internet data, right? So I think if you train it well, then more data is less of a problem, really. It's like the lack of data.
Okay. So a content, you produce content, you described that. What other features help a writer? What makes their life easier?
So, when we kind of started, when we kind of first launched this product, so we realized that, and that time it was more of the focus was to improve the writing, which we still do. But then we soon realized that, writers who write for the audience, they have a purpose in mind. They are not writing, like it's very different kind of set of audience who write, let's say, as a hobby blogger or somebody who is sort of, trying to kind of vent out their own personal blog, things like that, right? So, and of course they can do, like that's a different type of ask anyway. But folks who are kind of trying to write for an audience, it could be marketers, it could be folks who are like trying to sort of, do the PR and things like that, right? So they have to be very vigilant of what kind of things audience will read, what will resonate with them, how, let's say, a content can be correct in the sense that all information can be correct, but it can still be very complex to read, right? So what we do is that we started to develop all these, we call it SEO metrics, but they are not really, like, one can also think of as content optimizers. So I'll just give you an example. So in our workflow, we have something called Semantic Seo Score. What it does is it will tell you that, okay, you want to write on Tesla electric vehicles for this, just carrying the same example. Now, is your content really answering what people are really looking for when it comes to Tesla electric vehicles? Like, is it really making, or are you writing something which you or your kind of close group want to read, right? So what we do is really, we have a plethora of questions and patterns and keywords, which we know from the Google searches and other searches inside forums, that what people are looking for in this particular topic. And we have an algorithm, we have an AI algorithm, which we have trained to detect that is your content really answering it. Now, this is super useful for writer, because if a writer writes, kind of on their own and kind of in their own zone and kind of forget to answer what people actually look for, then the purpose of the content is not served, really, right? So this is what I was also alluding to in the beginning of the call, that we and this is where the optimizing part comes in, that we notice the need of the content writers also to make sure that the content will actually be read by the audience, right? Which is also in turns means that it will be ranked high and so on and so forth.
So, well, you mentioned SEO, and the semantic SEO thing sounds very interesting. Are you finding that AI content is good for SEO, and how fast does it work? I've had some people tell me, even a new site with AI generated content will start ranking within a day. Now, are you finding that sort of truth?
So not in a day. I mean, see, the thing is, I'll tell you that I have been asked both type of questions. I've been asked questions wherein they'll say, "Oh, AI content will rank very fast," and there is like another group of skeptics who would say, and there are reports like this. I'm not going to mention the sources, but they'll say that, "Oh, AI content is being penalized by Google," things like that, right? Now, the truth is really this. First of all, whoever is listening here, let me be on record to say it's not going to happen that AI content, just because it is AI content, will be penalized by Google. And for the simple reason that Google is itself behind lots of these technologies. They're not going to, in some sense, bite their own tail, right? So it's of course absurd to think, and we have taken approvals from OpenAI and stuff like that, right, to do this. So so the point is that this is what actually what might go wrong is, let's say there are some, there might be a kind of a AI software which will just produce artificial content. I mean, I remember that it used to happen about a decade back that people will just create web pages with just keyword stuff. They'll rank high, they'll be completely absurd, right? Now, of course, it does not happen anymore because Google has kind of developed its algorithms AI to kind of detect those things. So same thing is going to happen when it comes to the AI content. What search engines are going to be bothered about is this content high quality or not? High quality and original. That's what they care about. If they do not care about, so they will not give you extra preference. Of course, if you are able to write content really fast, so you then can assume that, if I'm going to write lots of content really fast and good content, so my probability of ranking is also increasing, right? But they are neither going to favor it, nor going to be against it. They're just going to see if it is high quality, original.
Well, don't you think that, a lot of Google's brand depends upon people believing that they're coming there and finding the best solutions for things and finding, things that are real, that are authentic. And while they're somewhat aware of SEO being performed, they also think that Google is, surfacing content that is really relevant to what they want with the right people. And if AI content, like anything before it, becomes too successful at gaming Google, don't you, and people start realizing that, don't you think that there will be some effort by Google to try to create slight roadblocks so the AI content generation doesn't work as well as it did before? What do you think about that?
Right. So I see where you're coming from. So my answer again will be around the lines that what Google will be very vigilant about, and I can actually, maybe in the show notes, I can share the links where Google's head of SEO are on record kind of claiming what I just mentioned. So the idea is that, of course, if they notice patterns wherein AI content is in some sense also giving you synthetic information, it's giving you false information. Let's say something which is very make-believe, right? That they're going to hunt down severely, right? And I mean, we have signed agreements with OpenAI already. Like, one might go against agreements also, but that this is not going to be used by their technology or other technologies. Our own technologies are not going to be used for spreading fake news. I mean, ironically, we are the startups. We started with the whole premise of being authentic, and this is also what is intrinsically inbuilt in LongShot. So my answer is that yes, if there is a synthetic content, let's say, I was actually noticing a content about this was just somebody has written just for the fun, right? Somebody has written a content that how something completely synthetic, a product which is which does not even exist, some kind of physical product which does not even exist. Maybe, let's, for the sake of argument, maybe some kind of computer has kind of has this many chips and this many that. So of course this is purely synthetic, was done for like a more of a fun thing. But somebody, if they publish it, then Google's effort would be not to prioritize it, because this is very very make believe but still wrong. So I would kind of repeat myself by this saying that if the content is authentic, original, so I think there's no problem at all.
No problem.
No matter how where it is coming from.
So what do you think is the future of AI content?
I think the future of AI content is similar. So, like a lot of people ask me future of AI. I think the future of AI content had to be like, we already are living in that future. Lots of people already use Grammarly, right? What is Grammarly if not a AI suggest, writing helper in some sense, right? They have been around for almost 10 years, right? So the point is that this is just next phase in the evolution now. And I think that we are at a similar stage as, lots of video creation softwares were. Like now you see Canva and other, whatever, right? Like lots of video editing tools out there. But maybe, 5 years down before, right? Maybe people are trying to kind of still create their own videos from the ground up. But now it's like so the creativity still lies with the humans. I think we would be going ahead ourselves if we think that AI writing is going to be sort of self-dependent. That's not going to happen. I mean, the point here is that you are going to do less of a grunt work, really. You have your own ideas. You're giving, injecting keywords. It is giving you some suggestions. You're saying, okay, this is good. Maybe rephrasing a bit, and so on and so forth. It's a very guided process, but still saves you tons of time. Right.
So, I think we could talk for hours upon where this is going. But this is part of the reason for this is part of the reason for this podcast, is to understand this is such a new space, and it's been dramatically accelerated by the COVID and pandemics, protocols, and I think that we've gone from 0 to 100 miles an hour, right? Yeah, we used to produce 4,000 pieces of content a month, right? But for brands that wanted it, but for SEO purposes, but now it's dramatically different, because they're doing a lot of that stuff, like generating captions and stuff like that with little AI programs. So this is definitely the future, and it's replacing a lot of the drudgery of content production. But who do you think uses most now the content intelligence software?
So, I mean, like as I said, like mostly it's used by marketers. We have, we have users in like big and small marketing agencies, content marketing agencies, as well as lots of in-house marketers in big brands, right? So a content team in a brand would use us to create their own content. Sometimes not even for SEO, right? Sometimes it's for their internal reports, internal newsletters, stuff like that, right? So I think those are among the primary audience. We have also seen some, interest from publishers. One of the biggest publishers in the world signed up with us, news publisher, I'm saying, not for news, by the way, but for their other kind of, sort of media reasons. For example, more of lifestyle content and product reviews, gadget reviews, things like that, right? So those are the kind of areas when it comes to LongShot being used. And I believe that, marketers, big and small, will, adopt it more and more. I'm seeing the adoption gradually increasing. So I think that's where the most of the meat of the audience lies.
Great. Well, we have to take our last break. So come back. We'll talk about what makes you unique from other AI platforms and the future.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be Frank About Health to advocate for all of us.
Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble!
On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, this is Joseph Franklin McElroy, back with the Wise Content Creates Wealth podcast, and my guest, Ankur Pandey. So, Ankur, what are the everything sounds great, but what are some of the negatives of using an AI writing system?
So one is over reliance on it. Some people still kind of come to us rather, and expect that it's going to be it's going to create content at the push of a button. As I said, like even if it is possible to do, it is not going to serve anybody's purpose because the content will become gibberish and stuff like that. So I think some of the issues exist with the mis-expectation, and also one has to. So and there are some kind of areas. For example, I mentioned news, right? So these are not the kind of areas where one should use AI writing. News or extremely technical articles, medical journals. So because this is going to be very sensitive when it comes to lots of facts and very current facts. So I think those are not the area currently where the AI content, it's content, but not in the sort of domain where AI can bring a lot of value at this point.
Cool. And you have this fact checker system, but you say it's so you say it's not necessarily accurate enough for like big B2B things like medical and things like that. But in general, I generally think it's accurate.
Yeah. So it's in some sense what it is doing is, so think of what actually. So like let's say if any fact checker system would need a source, right, to kind of validate against. But let's say you are writing a medical article, and the source is such that it does not have a public access. It's very in some sense kind of hidden somewhere in some kind of vault, like which is not publicly accessed, or the AI is not been trained on. So then it will fail. Also, when it comes to news, similar thing, right? Like it is the facts. The fact checking has to be done on the ground. Like today, X happened.
Mm-hmm.
The AI will not know per se X happened or not until it can find a reliable source of truth where it has seen that, right? And of course, one can imagine the scenario where every big or small publisher has not even published or not published the correct version. So it needs a reference. So because of all these reasons, all these sort of reasons related to the very nature of how the fact checking works, it is not entirely not possible at this stage, in the current version at least, to venture into these things. Not just for us, like anybody basically.
Yeah. One of our work has been work with content teams, which is different than working with individual writers, right?
Right.
What do you find are some of the pain points of a content team, and how do you help that?
Right. So content team, the pain point basically are so it's also okay. So I'm kind of thinking that what is the biggest pain point? There are many pain points. So among the pain points which we have noticed are like, can you work collaboratively, right? Like lots of times they need to kind of do proofreading and reviews of work spread across. So this is more of a management or content management style problem. But this is very basic, but still I think that it's still not solved to the satisfaction of lots of content teams. And then second thing is that second important thing we have noticed is that lots of times let's say there is an area, and this is more true for agencies like content agencies, is sometimes they would need to produce a piece of content for the clients in which they do not have enough of an in-house expertise. So then there lies like they have to either outsource themselves or kind of sort of either reject this. So this is also something we have seen. They would probably because sometimes some content agencies do work in a very specific area, but other journalist style content agencies would kind of seek the work, but then they may not have the expertise, and therefore content quality would go for a toss. Like product like us, for example, try to solve or mitigate it to some extent, because as I mentioned in the beginning, we try to kind of help you also in the content research part, right? So, but yeah, there's a limit. Like if it is very research heavy, then of course the problem will still remain.
So yeah, I've interviewed a number of content producers, and I'm sure you're aware of your competitors. But what makes LongShot AI unique?
So I would say, like the first and foremost, we have been, like since our existence last year, we have exclusively focused on long form, which means that we have lots of nuts and bolts. And so one can call themselves long form writer, but if one has to use it to see it, like what kind of intricacies are there and what kind of solution spectrum exists which we offer, right? So So one like very specific or very sort of in your face answer would be that we have been kind of dealing with the problem since our inception, and therefore we have tried to accommodate all possibilities in which long form either can go wrong or it can be fixed, or people, what kind of things people write, because most of the users are actually long form writers, right? And we kind of look at the data, we talk to them, and we kind of seek their learning. So if you want to focus on long form, I think we have provide you as a very expert long form writer would, we have tried to sort of learn from them, from our users, and try to replicate in the AI system. So I think this is in some sense a definitional difference. And then the other thing is that we focus a lot on things like authenticity, as I mentioned, using fact checks, etc. We have this unique feature called Semantic Seo Score, right? Which at least to the best of my knowledge, it's a very intrinsically, so it's like a lot of time people would approach at keyword densities and clusters and things like that, right? All tools, big and small, would kind of have that approach. But we have an approach wherein we try to see, okay, is your content really answering what people are looking for, and assign a score based on that. And your task should be to improve that score with the suggestions we give, right? So it's a very human-like approach, right? Rather than trying to stuff things unnaturally. So these are the kind of differences where we take and we are of course very end-to-end. Typically also we have seen, without naming the competition, some might be good, bad, whatever, but we have seen that they focus on the writing part. But we have noticed that why bother long form writers to kind of take 3-4 tools, one for research and one for writing and another for SEO metrics. So we try to kind of combine things like AI writing and things like SEO, Surfer SEO, whatever, right? Things like these, and research, like keyword research tools. So our vision is to become SEMrush plus Surfer SEO plus AI writer all in one.
Well, that's a nice vision, right? Yeah. Well, great. So how can people reach out to you, find out more about you? Is there anything going on you want to let people know about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so so our website is longshot.ai. You'll find lots of information there. You'll just Google longshot.ai or longshot.ai, you'll find about us. I can share my mail ID maybe in the show notes, and you can reach out to me, my team, and we will keep on maybe producing content, some video and tutorials and webinars and things like that. We just did a webinar 3 days back, where lots of audience came and asked their questions. We also gave a live demo just to kind of answer what they're looking for. So our plan is to keep on doing these things, educating the market. We believe that we in some sense, we're in a few months later than some of the more known players. But I think, I also believe, maybe this is not the question you directly answered, but I do not believe in directly head-on competing. I think, many other players are doing their own things. They're great. There have been times where I have recommended my users to use some other tool and not us, right? So I say, okay, you want to focus on X type of things, so rather use that, right? So what we want to do is based on our users' feedback, we have decided a broad area, but then the specific things will be told to us by users. So we'll kind of try to go into that direction, and therefore we'll keep on interacting with the users with whatever mediums we can.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the show. I mean, you reached out to me, and I put you on the spot and say be on it, and you've done really well. I appreciate that.
I'm glad I did. And
it's so fun. It's very interesting.
Some really important questions. Yeah.
I'm gonna pay attention, and frankly, one of the things I thought I liked is where you're talking about the agencies and needing factual based information for content in areas you don't necessarily know about. And I think that would be very useful for some of our practice. So I'm gonna look into it for that. All right, that sounds really great. And so thank you for being on the show. This is the Wise Content Creates Wealth podcast. You can find out more about us at wisecontentcreateswealth.com. We're also streamed live on Facebook at facebook.com/wise content creates wealth. We are part of the talkradio.nyc network, which is a lot of live podcasts every day. I recommend you taking a look at the shows that they have. It ranges from small business to self-help to travel to help for pets, as well as things for big business. So please go to talkradio.nyc to find out more about it. I also run another podcast on this network called Gateway to the Smokies. I have a resort in the mountains, the Smoky Mountain area, and I do all sorts of things about tourism and travel and culture in the Smoky Mountains. So that's on Tuesdays from 6 to 7. This podcast, Wise Content Creates Wealth, is every week from on Fridays from noon until 1. So hope to see you next week. Thank you for showing up, and talk to you later. Bye.